So this one is going to look similar to the circulatory system in that there's a lot of information here, and I'm just going to sort of scratch the surface. So I'm going to show you some slides. I'm going to talk about things that come to mind that we probably would have discussed in class, and then you'll see some notes attached. There are notes I just happened to find in my binder from um, another semester, but they'll work perfectly, and you can copy those down, and then you'll see a digestive quiz pop up um, either Friday or Monday. And after this lesson today, I'm thinking I'll do what I did last week, which is basically just sort of do like a story time theme or idea and tell you some stuff about potentially this system as we kind of move forward. So today, digestive system. Um, this is basically what we call the digestive tract. And so it really is one great big long tube. You start up here at the opening, would be the mouth. And then it runs down here. We call this tube the esophagus, into the stomach, which leads through the intestines, small and then large, down to the rectum. I'm going to move my arrow there, and then out the anus. So, like I said, it's one long channel, tube, whatever. There are a couple organs along the sides that secrete liquids with enzymes in them into the tube. But basically, your food starts at the top, and then all of the nutrients in your food that your body requires is taken out of the tube into the bloodstream, circulated around the body. And anything that was not used and needed and it wasn't taken out of the tube and then distributed through the bloodstream to your body is a waste product that is going to come out the other end. Okay. I'm going to point out a couple of things on here. Normally, we would take time to learn different elements and names and things like that. So I'm just going to introduce the main pieces, and then next year you'll get more detail if you go on. So this is actually the nasal cavity here. These two things are connected at the back of your mouth. So when we did the respiratory system last, we talked about how air can actually come in here or here. It would not go down this tube, but instead your air, which they haven't shown the picture, would go down this tube, which is your trachea, sits right in front of your esophagus, and that would lead to your lungs. So we have like a shared space here for both your air and food. Air should head down this way though, and food, water, etc. should head down this way. So this tube, because we already talked about it, is made of cartilage. It's ringed. It's hard but soft structure, but it always remains open because of the material it's built out of. What you don't want, because this is a shared space, is of course food to go down this way, because that blocks your airway and that leads to choking. So there's a little flap right here, which goes down over the trachea as you swallow. All right. The tube for the food is made of muscle. This whole tract actually is made of muscle. The reason that it's made of muscle is because you have to keep the food moving through the tract as soon as it gets into the back of your mouth, all the way out your anus. So the nasal cavity isn't actually part of the digestive tract. We don't take in food through our nose. We take in through our mouth, and we would talk about too teeth and things like that in here. They are part of starting the process of breaking down the food so you can get all the nutrients out of it. There's two kinds of digestion, mechanically, which means basically physically smashing the food into smaller pieces. And then there's chemical digestion, which means you're using enzymes, little chemicals that can break the food down even further. Your food has to be broken down into its smallest elements and pieces, like carbs and fats and proteins and things like that, before they can cross out of the tube and circulate through your bloodstream. So the whole point of this system is to take the things that come into the tube and get the nutrients out of the tube so they enter the bloodstream and then travel to all the cells in your body to be part of that process of making energy to keep your cells alive. Okay, so teeth, the other thing in here is the tongue, quite a large muscle. These things work together. The saliva in your mouth works together. You can see here there's 3 salivary glands. They produce the saliva that's in your mouth, which has some chemical digestion to it, has some enzymes that are working on the starches and things like that to make your food basically a mushy mess that is safe to swallow and will pass down into the tube. So go past the mouth and the teeth into the esophagus. Like I said, it's a muscle that'll like squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Involuntary. You're not thinking about it, but your brain is controlling it to keep your food constantly passing through. When I read from you, we'll talk about sort of like how long this tends to take for food to pass and some other pieces like that. We get down into the stomach. What's interesting about the stomach is its acidic environment. It helps digest certain elements of your food, but it also does an important role of killing off bacteria that may come in on your food. Well, that will come in on your food. And then we start the intestines, is the stomach. There are 3 organs that have these little ducts or tubes that join to the bigger tube here of the small intestine. This is called the duodenum. And they secrete liquids that have enzymes in them that will work on breaking down the large carbs, fats, and proteins smaller and smaller and smaller so they can cross into the blood. So the liver produces something called bile, and bile works on breaking down fats, emulsifying fats. And the gallbladder here stores that bile. So really this sits right in here. So the liver makes bile, the gallbladder stores it, and then releases it into the tube as required. Pancreas down here produces all kinds of enzymes to break down all 3 of those things, carbs, fats, and proteins, and allow you to digest your food that way. And it same area, the small intestine, right out of the stomach here, the duodenum, is where all these organs release those working enzymes or chemicals into the tube. Small intestine winds, moves into the large intestine. Large intestine is wider but shorter. Here, all of these things, stomach, intestines, are all wrapped in blood vessels because of this passage from the tube into the bloodstream. What is mostly absorbed in this region would be those carbs, fats, and proteins. And then here, by the time you get to this, it's a little bit about some vitamins being processed, but also absorption of water, and then waiting to store the waste here, the feces here, until you come out the other end. So it's a very broad overview. So I think the next slides are like bits and pieces at a time. I may be repetitive about what I'm going to tell you from piece to piece. Hopefully I don't forget anything too critical. All right, so here's the mouth. So inside the mouth, we have different styles of teeth. If we were at school, we'd look at how the structure of the tooth helps determine its function. And whether or not you're a herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore can be determined by the type of teeth in your mouth, depending on what your diet. Sometimes you need teeth to like rip and shred. Sometimes you need teeth to like grab and not let your prey escape. You can think of this fish where the teeth kind of go backwards. You need grinding molars if you're going to eat a lot of grassy plant-like material, that kind of thing. So humans are omnivores, so we have a combination of different kinds of teeth, and we don't really have anything that's too dramatic in terms of our tooth structure. You know, sometimes there's great big canines on different species. There's a lot of variety we could look at. You have that for mechanical digestion, for the physical smashing up, breaking the food into smaller pieces. We have the tongue, which is a muscle which helps take that food, mix with saliva, and make it into a nice moist bolus that will then safely pass down the esophagus and keep going. The 3 salivary glands. 2 are under the tongue. Some people can do that oh so fun trick, and I can't demonstrate, where you lift your tongue and your like saliva spits out kind of trick. But yeah, we're all producing saliva all the time, swallowing it back to help with any food as it comes. Okay. Here is that muscular motion. So this is the head here, the teeth. There's the mass of food. It's just going to keep repeating. Swallow, and then squeezing. Like it's like squeezing like this. Like this is a tube. Squeeze, 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 and the food will keep moving down. This is why you can swallow while you're standing on your head. The muscles keep moving that food in one direction. And that continues all the way through the tract. Okay. It's not a good situation, obviously, if your muscle contractions aren't working properly to keep your food moving and stuff is sort of getting stuck along the way and your body is having a hard time processing and moving everything along as it should at any point in that muscular tube. But those movements are called peristalsis. Okay, those muscular movements. So here's the stomach. It is very muscular. It has multiple layers of muscle and then is like a hollow sac on the inside, full of hydrochloric acid and pH about 2. The top part here, the sphincter muscles are also the top and bottom. Sphincter muscles are like ring-shaped muscles that close shut. So there's one here at the top, the cardiac. There's one down here, the pyloric. And so once you swallow your food, the muscles bring it down to here and then it closes behind. So you can stand on your head once again, and it's not like your stomach contents are going to run out your mouth. The pyloric one at the bottom, like once the food's kind of been tumbled and squeezed and processed, it will come out down here through the pyloric. Couple things about this acidic environment. Like I said, it is there primarily to kill the bacteria that comes in with your meal. If we got into a lot of detail, we talk about how there's certain enzymes that only work in the acidic environment, start to break down your proteins, but most of the digestion, most of the chemical breakdown of your food is coming later. It's coming after the stomach. There's very few things that pass into your bloodstream at the stomach. There's water and a few other things, but most things are absorbed at a stage through the intestine, not at the stomach itself. Heartburn is when this acidic liquid in here splashes up into your esophagus again. So the lining of the stomach is designed to be able to withstand this harsh environment, but other areas aren't, and it hurts and it burns when that acid escapes the stomach. So if you have a situation where it is splashing up into the esophagus, it hurts, it burns, it feels like it's near your heart, but it has nothing to do with your heart. And how you usually remedy that situation, if it's not something more serious and ongoing, is you take a basic material. If you're going to do chemistry, we talked about it briefly. We didn't really get a chance to do this. But you take something to neutralize that acid. So some kind of antacid tablet, like a Tums, for example, is one brand name that I can think of off the top of my head. So those two things together, the acid and the base, come together to make neutral, give you water, and stop that burning sensation. Down here at the bottom of the stomach, obviously there's some acidic stuff that is going to leave here because your food is mixed with this, but your body has its own neutralizer. The pancreas secretes something like baking soda that will do the same thing here, not make it burn on the way through, okay? Ulcers are when there's like a hole in the lining here of the stomach, and so the acid is like splashing against other tissues and causing you pain and discomfort lower down in these areas here. Okay. All right, so the intestines are next, and they go for a long time. The inside of the intestine is not smooth. If you were to like take a piece of intestine, slice it, and open it up and feel along the surface, it's got all these little bumps and ridges. These bumps and ridges are called villi, and they have their own bumps and ridges, if you look at the microscope, called microvilli. And the point of these is to increase surface area. So you can see right here that there are blood vessels, capillaries, the smallest ones, because this is where materials want to cross over, that go up inside each of these finger-like points. So what happens is as this digested food is moving by, it can cross. The pieces now have been digested to the point they're small enough that they can cross here, get into the bloodstream, and be carried away all over the body. There's also some lymphatic pieces here. That's because you want to be ready to fight infection, anything that comes in that shouldn't, through your stomach as well, and your intestines as well, and into that system. So all wrapped once again with the circulatory, we have an interconnection of systems. And the fact that this is like this gives you much more, like I said, surface area. So a lot more potential to absorb these things, all these important nutrients along the way. Okay, back to these organs that secrete stuff. So here's a piece. So the stomach would be up here. And then we're going into the first part of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum. Don't worry about all these names. Here you can see the pancreas. And the pancreas has several roles. It's not just part of the digestive system. It's called an accessory organ, like the liver and the gallbladder, because they have multiple roles, but they are on the outside, putting things into the digestive tract tube. So the pancreas is in charge of, like I said, putting in the digestive juices for the carbs, fats, and proteins to help break them down even further, but also the sodium bicarbonate um, to neutralize the stomach acid. The liver is more attached right up here. Put in, or maybe over here. It's kind of hard to tell with this picture. But the role it does here in the digestive system is to make bile, and bile is in charge of breaking down fats, and the gallbladder just stores the bile and keeps a little stockpile. It is possible to have a situation where you need to get your gallbladder removed. Could be these stones that develop in there and get really uncomfortable, or some other issue. That's okay. They can take out your gallbladder and you can get by, but because you can't store bile, which breaks down fats, you have to make some changes to your diet, or be aware that you can't have a lot of fats because you're missing this stored material that would help you break down those fats. All right. I just lost, what did I lose track of that I was going to say? It'll come back to me. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say that bile is sort of like a dark liquid. If you've been sick and you've thrown up for whatever reason, usually the first thing you do is empty your stomach contents. So whatever you ate last, whatever stage it was in digestion, you bring that out of your stomach. Once you've brought up all that and your stomach is empty, then usually you start to bring up stomach acid. And it's that yellowy kind of material, and obviously does not taste good. If you have a problem where you throw up a lot, that yellowy acidic stuff will actually start to eat at the enamel of your teeth. It can do damage to your esophagus, and you can have some issues related to that material being in spaces where it's not supposed to be. If you are in real trouble and you start to bring up like a dark liquid, then you're bringing up bile, and that would indicate that you're really in some trouble. Okay. Picture of a damaged liver. I don't think I'm going to use my other slide. No, I'm not going to use these other slides. Sometimes when there's extra time, we talk about other functions of the liver and how you get cirrhosis of the liver and fatty liver and things like that. But we'll leave that for now because it's less connected to this and the basics of this system. Like I said, I'm going to go backwards here for a second. Here, once you get through the small intestine, this is where water absorption becomes a piece. And usually when we're talking about this, I'd explain that if not enough water is absorbed, that's when you have diarrhea. The food is moving through really quick. Your body's trying to dump it. If you're sick from your food, like food poisoning, your body's going to try and dump it by vomiting, but also by pushing it through here quickly and getting it out the other end. It's going to go through here too quickly to absorb all the water out of it. And that's why you get that really liquid type dumping of materials. And then the opposite situation, that would be constipation, where your body is trying to conserve water. And so it's absorbing a lot along this tract, and whatever is in here for waste is getting compacted, and it's getting hard to move, and it makes it harder to actually push it through and have it come out the end of the tube. Okay. So I think that's the basics. You did see diabetes go by, but that is more endocrine and things like that. There were some other connections, other systems that I'm just gonna let go. So that is your snapshot of this system. What you'll see attached is a gizmo which you can access to play around and put a digestive tract together and put different foods through and see what happens in different scenarios. And then the notes, which you can take down that kind of summarize some of the things I talked about. Yeah, I think that's most of it. And then, like I said, I'm going to follow up one more day this week and give you some more just information, not work associated with, but some more information, I think, interesting information, like last time, about historical stuff and context, stuff I love. And I'm so sorry. There's so much stuff that I didn't even share about circulatory system and so many things. Maybe that's what I can do in the final days as things are wrapping up and your marks are entered and we're just really, really finishing. Okay, so that's where that is at. And like I said, look for more of a story time based thing to sort of finish up this particular piece.